JavaScript variables. It's good practice when programming to write code that is as generalizable as possible. It allows the code to be reused and helps limit the effort of writing and maintaining redundant code. Imagine somebody gave you a robot as a gift to do chores around your house. You have to teach it how to do your chores. What if you wanted to teach it to wash the dishes? That would be great. It'd be really helpful to have a robot wash the dishes for you. But what if you had to write different instructions for each dish in your house? That would be a lot of dishes and perhaps a lot of instructions, and that wouldn't be so great. What we can do with the variable is that we can treat it as like a container, and then we can write a set of directions and pass each item through that set of directions. So here in this diagram, currently, we're going to rinse the food off the silverware and then wash the silverware with soap and water, and then dry the silverware with a towel, and then move on to the next thing, which perhaps might be a cup. The box, the red box that you see here, is really the variable. It's a temporary container that we can pass these items through, and we can teach our robot to wash all of the items one at a time using this container. And that will make your instructions more modular and more reusable. And that's really helpful. There are many ways of declaring a variable in JavaScript. We'll start with one of the most basic ways, which is using the var keyword, V-A-R. So here, I have a variable called x I'm creating, and JavaScript will then recognize x as a variable, and I'm assigning it an empty string, 2 sets of quote marks there, followed by a semicolon. And that means that variable x holds an empty string. On the next example, I have a variable called cheese that I've created, and it's holding a string called yummy. The equal sign here is an assignment operator. It means assigned. So yummy is assigned to cheese. It's easy to use the word equals because we're used to seeing the symbol in association with math, where we see 2 plus 2 equals 4, and we say equals. But in programming, we want to say assigned. Yummy is assigned to cheese. And then the next example, we have a variable called age, and it's assigned a value of 25. 25 is a number. It doesn't need to go inside quotes because JavaScript knows what a 25 is. In JavaScript, variables are case sensitive and they have to follow certain rules. For example, a variable has to start with a letter. You can't start with a number. So this variable over here that says 1 cat is not going to work because it starts with a number. Also, you should not start variables with something like a $sign. They're used a lot by libraries, so you should not do that as well. The third example, my-cat, is not going to work because JavaScript sees the dash as a minus sign. So it thinks you're trying to subtract cat from my, which is not going to work at all either. Also, you can't have a space in a variable name because var my might be a variable, but then it doesn't know what to do with cat because it sees that as a separate thing because there's a space in there. And then finally, there are certain keywords in JavaScript that you can't use as names of variables, like new is a keyword. And over here, I have some of the keywords pulled up on the W3 Schools website. W3 Schools is one of the places you can go to get a lot of information about JavaScript, basic information. We'll also look a lot at the MDN, the Mozilla Developer Network, which is really the most authoritative place to get information about JavaScript, but it can be a little bit overwhelming at first as well. But the W3 Schools is a little bit easier to understand. You can see here that there are a bunch of keywords, and you'll notice that some of them have an asterisk in here. Words marked with an asterisk are new in ECMAScript 5 and 6. Remember, we talked about the versions of JavaScript. So now when you see ECMAScript 5 and 6, you know that we're talking about ECMAScript 5, which was released in 2009. That was the big release then. And ECMAScript 6, or ES6, was the version that was released in 2015. Okay, so these are all keywords that you can't use as names for variables in JavaScript. Over on the right in this image here, you'll see we have variable cat with a lowercase c, variable cat all in uppercase letters, and variable cat with a capital C. These are 3 different variables that hold 3 different values. It's generally better practice to use lowercase letters when creating variables, or to do what's called camel casing, like we have down at the bottom here. My cat with a capital C in the middle. So it's kind of like a hump in the middle. We like camels in JavaScript. So that's called camel casing. That's not specific to JavaScript, but it's something that is in a lot of programming languages. But we use that frequently in JavaScript. You'll frequently see variables that are using camel casing.